So we've got our 5-month-old Devon calves, and they're doing really well in the yoke. And I wanted to do a video on something that I haven't really talked about before, which is when you get the animals to the point where they're trustworthy, they're working the way that you want them to, they're in a yoke, how do we introduce basic, basic work to them so they can start being useful? Because at some point you have to introduce that. And that should start right away. Even when you first get them in a yoke, it's always a good idea to have them pulling something. Whoa, whoa, back up, Garth. Whoa. Even if it's just a chain or a rope, and you're not doing that to condition them, you're just getting them used to something between the two animals. The thing that works for me, however, because a lot of people just primarily use a chain to pull a tire or a small stone boat when the calves are young. Oh, I think what works a little bit better is to work them on a cart, or even if you just fashion a pole, something solid to go between them, because then they're forced to learn how to maneuver around something between them instead of just a chain that's there that they can step over. Because that's one of the more frustrating things with chain work, is as you're making a turn, if you're not proficient on sidestepping yet and the animals are keeping their rear ends in, they can step over the chain, they can back chain. If you have them on a pole, they're forced to work together, and they get used to pulling, even if it's a small load. And then what can happen is when you put them on the chain, if you do it correctly, and you start pulling a little heavier loads with the chain, they're already kind of used to the process and where their bodies need to be, because the pole keeps them in place. Now, you can't rely on a pole or a chain to keep them in the right position all the time. You need to be training them through that, to have them stay off that pole. But but it makes it easier. There's less distractions if you're starting with a pole. So we've got a small cart here. First thing that I want to show everyone is the systematic approach to even hitching to a pole. And if you do it with some level of precision and consistency, it makes it really easy to connect to any implement. And the pole is one of the best things to start with. And I'll also show you the chain, how I connect it with a chain. I don't use a T-pin. A T-pin is too sloppy. But there's also some tricks along the way that'll help you in the training process. Whoa, boys. So I'm going to first start by bringing them around and lining myself up with the cart. All around, boys. All around. All around. All around. Wayne, all around. All around. All around. Whoa. We're going to start far enough away so we can line ourselves up. Whoa. Okay. So on any poled implement, even if you just fashioned a pole to connect to them, to have something in between them, which is a really good training aid, you want to start perpendicular to the pole, but you want to be as close to the axle with your off animal as possible. A lot of people cut it too short, because what I want to do is when it's a matter of geometry, really. When I get the animals perpendicular with the pole, I want to move my off one right around and spin him so that the yoke, the ring, is right above the end of the pole, so I can just lift it up and it's centered. I don't want to have to do a bunch of movements. I don't want them to go too far and then back up or shift them around. And until I get it perfect, I'm going to continue to do it every time, over and over again. However, the first thing that we want to do, is to just get the animal used to the pole being there. They're curious, they're going to sniff. Let them sniff it and then walk them over it so that they're used to that walking over, because you're going to ask your off animal to walk over the pole. So we'll do that first. Come up, Garth. G, come up. Come up, paw. Whoa. Okay. These guys have been on the cart quite a bit. Whoa. So they're pretty used to it at this point, but with new animals that you're introducing this to, they'll sniff, they'll want to move around. That's fine. Let them do that and then walk them over both. Come up, boys. Come up. Whoa. Good boys. First time you do that, it may take some coaxing. That's super important to get them used to stepping over those obstacles. Instinctually, what happens when we're trying to hitch to a cart or to a pole is a lot of times we bring our animals, our team, too far to the end of the pole. What you want to do is you want to have your off animal as close to the box or to the wheel as possible. That way you have as much room to maneuver up and over the pole, and you can line yourself up so that you make one smooth motion. So I'm going to show you if I were to do it too short, or if I bring my animals up to the pole and I have them too far away or too close, then back to the geometry statement, when you step your off animal over, the ring won't be lined up over the center of the pole. You'll have to maneuver them too much. So the idea is just to do it in one smooth motion. So this is doing it too short. Come up, come up, come up. Ho, ho. Oh, Wayne, step over, haw. Wayne, step over, haw. Haw. Come up, ho. Okay. It's still pretty good, but if I was even further out, by the time the off animal stepped over the pole and got his legs over, I'm too far forward to hitch, so I'd have to back them up. Back, 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 ho, ho. And that's where I want to be. So especially if you're competing, but it doesn't really matter. If you want to do it in a smooth way, so that it's consistent every time, even on the farm when you're doing work, you want to be able just to step the off one over, have them stop exactly where you want them to, and then you pull a pole up and you hitch just from there. So let me show you a little bit easier way that'll get you so that you don't have to maneuver your animals so much. All right. So right now I've got my off animal as close to the wheel in this case, because that's the obstruction. If I had a box on the cart, it'd be the front of the box. I'm going to bring them both up perpendicular in the right spot, not too far, not too close from the pole. And then I use a command to tell the off one to step over, haw. And that's not telling just the off one to step over the pole, it's telling the near one to stay in place, because we want to be able to do both of those things simultaneously. So watch how I swing him over. Back up, boys, back. Haw. Come up, Wayne. Come up, boys. Oh! Wayne, step over, haw. And when you do this to begin with, first couple times, if they don't do it right, you can coax your off animal and kind of keep the stick near your front one so he doesn't move. But if they don't do it correctly, don't force a fix, like backing up and moving them around. Go walk them across, bring them around again, do it again. They don't do it right, walk them across, So now he's going to do it on its own. But keep going until they do it right, even if that's 20 times, and it won't be 20 times. It'll just be 2 or 3 or 4 times. But don't fix a problem and let them get away with doing it incorrectly. Wayne, step over, haw. 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 Ho! Ho! Okay, ho! So now both the off animal stepped over. He's good. I've got another foot to go, and I have enough room now to line him up. So I can just pivot, get where I want it lined up, and stop. Come up one step. Wayne, come up one step, haw. Ho! 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 Garth, come up one step. Garth, come up one step. Garth, come up one step. Garth, come up, G. Ho! 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 Okay. And if it weren't for the flies, they wouldn't be tossing their heads so much. But now I'm lined up perfect. So let me show you from this step, hooking up. Let's try to do this one-handed. So you can see I've got them lined up just like I showed you before. I go between them. This is a little different depending on who you ask. I like to go between them, make sure that my near one is stepped out so I have room to work. That's another opportunity to train sidestepping, so make sure that you give them the command. Now if I have them lined up correctly, I should be able to pull the pole straight up, push that big ring forward, and it'll fall into place. I don't want to do a lot of jockeying around. I want to make sure that I get them lined up, give them the right commands, they step over the pole, and it's right where I want it to be. Now, I have a second ring on my yoke where I pull the chain. I'll show you this here in a second. We're going to pull it nice and tight. And if you look at that big ring, the tighter I pull that chain, the more angle I have on the ring, which means, whoa, the less slop I've got with the entire cart. And you can see that just hitches right to the, it can connect to the pole or the axle in this case. Okay, I don't use a T-pin, it's too sloppy. Again, I think everybody can do it the way that they want, but that's one thing that I don't like the T-pin. It's way too sloppy. And if you add the slop of the T-pin and the yoke, I don't think it's really great for the animals either. So That's how we do it. And then before we take off, we're gonna set them in. Garth put in, Garth put in, Garth put in. Ooh. Wayne put in, 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 Wayne put in. Whoa, good boy, ho. Okay, so we want them nice and parallel with each other when we go to take off with the cart. What you'll see now that I do is I just use the cart as a forecart. And if you have just a pole, you could add a short length of chain at the end of the pole, again, just to keep something rigid between them. And I'll pull forward and you'll see this, but I've just got a little sled with some weight in it. Oh, you can use tires or a stone boat or a log or anything like that. And by adding that amount of weight when they're younger and having them on a cart or the pole, they're going to be forced to walk forward a little bit. They'll get the idea of how to pull the load a little bit easier, especially if you're calm and you train them, especially where they should stand. A lot of it is starting at the right time and each animal taking the right step and being well mated together. And that just takes time. So you got to use the stuff that you have to your advantage, which for this is the cart. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that they're parallel with each other. So I'm going to put my near one in. Garth put in. Garth put in. Whoa. I'm going to try to get them to step up together, and we'll be pulling the load. We'll just pull it. Now, if I have to make a turn, I can work on sidestepping a lot easier with the pole, and I can go slow. So if I want them to go haw, tell them Wayne put in, Garth put out, haw. Wayne put in, Garth put out, haw. Wayne put in, Garth put out, haw. Garth put out, haw. Ho, ho, ho. Wayne put in, Garth put out, haw. Oh, Wayne put in, Garth put out, haw. Wayne put in, good boy. Garth put out, haw. And then we can prod him just a little bit. Garth put out, Wayne put in, Garth put out, haw. Whoa. Now what I don't want them to do is have the pole pushing them, although they will feel it between them. But the advantage to having the pole is you're not working with the chain, they can't step over it. And I can do the same thing to the G. It's just easier to make turns and get them used to pulling a load on a turn, and then you can, like I said, graduate them to chain work. Garth put in, Wayne put out, G. Garth put in, Wayne put out, G. Garth put in, Wayne put out, G. Wayne put out, G. Garth put in, Wayne put out, G. Garth put in, Wayne put out, G. Oh, so I'm not having the pole push my off when I make a G turn. I just want him to know that it's there. Again, if I only had the chain, he would have the near one would have a tendency to step over, or they would pivot, and the off one might step over with his rear feet. So we're gonna pull this just forward. You can see how we've got it set up. So Wayne put in, make sure they're parallel with each other. Wayne put in, Wayne put in, put in. Oh, good boy. Boys, come up, come up, come up, Wayne. Wayne, come up, come up, come up, come up. Whoa. And by starting out that way, you can see it's not a heavy load, but if I pull the load that way, because they're on the pole with the yoke connected to it, they're going to learn a little bit quicker how they need to step in sync with one another. And then if you're making sure that they're set in, you know, they can't turn if one has its rear end out, because they're not going to be able to pull straight. So they should be nice and parallel with each other. And go slow with it. If it takes one step at a time to get them to pull the load, and they struggle a little bit at first, that's fine. As long as they're not struggling because it's too heavy. If they're struggling because they're just not used to working together, because you're training them, that's fine. Take your time and just set them back up. Go forward a step, set them back up. It could take you 5 or 10 minutes. Whoa! But you'll find that if you do that consistently, stopping, starting, stopping, they will eventually get it to say, okay, well, if I step in time with the other guy, then I can pull the load and it's no big deal. And then you can up the weight from there, although you don't want to go crazy with calves. But they should be pulling something behind them as soon as you feel comfortable with them being useful. And at the end of the day, it's exactly the opposite. Just a couple things to remember. Sidestepping again. Garth put out. Garth put out. Ho! Okay, and the more you do that, the more they'll do it through voice command. So make sure that you give them the command, give them a second, and then just give them a little pinch or nudge. We're gonna unhook the chain. Okay, especially with new animals, part of the training process is getting them used to new things and things that will probably scare them. So when you're unhooking the chain or hooking it up, just go slow in the beginning, and then they shouldn't be bothered by it at all eventually. Whoa. And then we can just move our ring forward and then slowly drop the pole down. Don't drop it and let it fall. Whoa. Have a little bit of respect for your equipment. Whoa. Whoa. And then obviously that can scare the animals too, so just be careful with that. But that's how we unhitch, again, using the chain and the cart. It's a great way to get them used to doing some real work.